Hello again, viewers, and welcome to another video. It has been quite a long time since I've been able to do one of these vlog slash review type videos. Unfortunately, a lot of my time has been taken up trying to edit the audio upgrade as well as the differential install videos that I've uploaded recently. Those things are a bit of a monster at about an hour a piece. So I'm finally glad that I can get to doing some of my normal videos again. Ooh, we got a tunnel coming up. Limited slip differential really sticks, but in this video we are mainly focused on the tablet, so let's go ahead and talk about this for a little bit. The tablet that I am reviewing today is the Samsung Galaxy Tab A. It is a 10.1-inch tablet which uses the Brainiac plastics to mold it into the dash. If you have a different car other than a 370, Brainiac does support a range of different tablets as well as vehicles, but I'm going to be mainly focused on the one for my Z today. So let's go ahead and talk about price. The tablet itself only runs you about $200, and that's fairly reasonable considering the fact that most double DINs will run you about the same amount for a low-end model. But the plastics themselves, Brainiac actually charges you $300 for this. And I am pretty sure it doesn't cost them $300 to make the plastics, but they know that they're the only ones in the business that are selling them, especially for the 370Z. This is our only option, so they know that they can charge that much. But if you're willing to spend over $500 for a setup like this, go for it. It is a fairly unique look. I do like the look of a Tesla-style screen over a traditional double DIN. Gives you a lot more screen space. It looks a little more updated. Overall, I just believe it is better value than going for a traditional double DIN in this car. What's also great about this tablet is this is true fully fledged Android. A lot of double DINs that you get nowadays don't actually have an Android option. There are a few of them now that are coming out with Android Auto, and you do have a couple of actual Android double DIN stereos, but they are usually a bit cheap. The capacitive touchscreens that they use are really outdated. They're just not a great option. You can see here that this is, of course, Android. I am running Android Oreo 8.1. One of the distinct advantages about running with an Android tablet as your stereo is you do get access to the Google Play Store. Unfortunately, I'm not connected to the internet right now, so we can't see any apps, but it means you can download whatever apps you want, whether it be for your music player or for navigation. I currently use PowerAmp Pro for my music player because it does mean that you can get a nice display of the cover art. It supports all the different music formats, so I really enjoy using this. And then for navigation, for example, I actually use Waze. So it's nice being able to have both of these apps that I really enjoy natively on the tablet in my car instead of having to run them off of my phone. And of course, if you want internet access, because this is a tablet, you can go and connect to pretty much any wireless network. If you want to be able to have a Wi-Fi network in your car, you can either do a wireless hotspot from your phone, or you can set up another mobile hotspot inside your car as well. Now, if you're still not sold on the tablet, if you think you can get most of this from a traditional stereo, let me show you one distinct advantage that the Galaxy Tab A has. You can actually open up multiple apps at a time through its split screen function. So now I can watch my navigation as well as my music player at the same time. So this is something that you can't get with most double DINs. It doesn't support it just because of how small the screens are. But with having a 10-inch tablet like this with a Tesla-style screen, you can run multiple applications concurrently at the same time. Now, those are some of the things that are great about running an Android tablet, but there are also some downsides as well. Number one is, with it being summer right now, it gets really hot out, and most Android devices, or at least Samsung tablets, do have battery temperature sensors, and they do monitor the temperature of the battery. So when it gets too hot outside, the tablet will refuse to charge, and the charger that I'm using for this tablet does not have a high rate of charge. So sometimes keeping this thing charged during the day can be a bit tricky, especially if it's not charging due to the temperature. Another disadvantage of running with a tablet like this is if you inset it into the dash, your physical buttons that are on the tablet are going to be inaccessible, which means that you will have to do some workarounds to be able to have power access as well as access to volume. For the power, you do need to root your tablet. Brainiac does explain this in a little bit of detail on their website. I'll leave a link in the description below. But you need to root it and change one of the system files so that whenever it detects that power is plugged in, the tablet will begin to boot up. So whenever I turn the power off of my car, it displays the power off ability for me to be able to turn the tablet off. So you have to remember to do that. Otherwise your tablet will remain on and it'll consume battery. And then when I go to turn the power on, you can see that it begins to detect that it's charging, and then the tablet will begin to boot up. So this is something that you will need root access for. Android is Linux based, I believe, in the background, and what root access means is it's sort of like administrative access. If you own a Windows computer, you need to be able to get to some of those files that are normally not able to be tampered with, and then you need to edit them out so that way you can get your tablet to perform like this, because this is how you would expect it for any sort of car stereo. You want your tablet to be able to turn off when you turn the ignition off to conserve battery, and then be able to turn back on with the power. For multimedia control, I have a Bluetooth multimedia button. This button allows you to do volume up and down, so you don't need access to the physical buttons on the tablet. It allows you to stop and start your music, as well as allows you to skip tracks. And the button is set right here down to my right, so I have easy access to it. I don't have to take my eyes off of the road when I'm driving to be able to change the volume or skip tracks. In terms of installation, it's fairly easy. I didn't actually document it myself. Normally I like to do DIY videos every time I'm doing an install, but I was anxious to get this tablet in, and Brainiac actually does a really good job at detailing the installation process for your vehicle. So if you are going to get their plastics, you can check out their website, and you can check out the videos that they have there as well to be able to learn how to install it in your car, as well as to wire it up and how to root the tablet. I am not a Brainiac employee. I am simply giving you guys the information that you need if you decide to go with their plastics, but there are also other dash solutions as well if you want to do a Tesla style screen like this. And the last thing I want to talk to you guys is the setup of the tablet a little bit. Not so much the installation. As I said, all those instructions you can find online, but I more so want to talk about how I've connected this tablet with my stereo, as well as how I can control the media and how I'm keeping it charged. So the first thing I want to point out is I did make a modification to the Brainiac plastics. I ended up cutting out a little section here to be able to expose the home button, as well as the application list and back button. These are really important to have to be able to navigate through the tablet a little bit easier. Normally these are just kind of covered up the way Brainiac has it, but all I did was end up sawing out the two sections here, and then ended up filling it up with some body filler. That way it meshes up fairly well with the tablet. It's not perfect, but it works for me, and it keeps these buttons accessible. So the next thing to talk about here is how we control the power to the tablet and how we can turn it on and off without access to the power button. So obviously, as I already told you, in order to be able to get the tablet to turn off when you unplug power, you need to make sure that you have root access, because you do need to go and edit the system file to be able to tell the tablet to turn off when power is unplugged. Again, Brainiac already has a fairly detailed explanation of how to do this. The other thing you're going to need to do if you want your tablet to be able to turn off automatically, I end up using an application called Tasker, and this allows me to, whenever power is unplugged, I can go and set a different task to occur to be able to tell the apps to close and to tell the tablet to turn off. Right now I actually have it set where it'll present the option for me to be able to turn it off. So if I were to go ahead and power the car off, it'll actually, if you can see there, it's kind of dark, but it'll give me the option to turn that power off if I want to. I'm going to just leave it on right now. Turn the accessories back on here. So that's a really helpful option to have, because it allows you to save battery and makes the tablet act a little more like a factory stereo. In terms of charging, there is not going to be a micro USB installed in here by default, and I didn't want to have to run a cable externally in here to be able to charge it. So I do have a DC to USB power converter. It just takes the 12-volt signal from the factory wiring harness in the stereo and then converts it into a 5-volt USB signal, which they can then plug into the top of the tablet, I believe it is, or the bottom. You just plug the micro USB in there, use a 90-degree joint so it can fit in the narrow space that you have, and that is what I'm using to actually charge my tablet. It is pretty slow. I think it only does up to 1 amp, I believe, of charge. I would have to go back and look, but it does charge fairly slowly, so sometimes it is difficult to be able to keep the tablet fully charged. I'm only at 31% here, but making sure you turn the tablet off and then running at a lower brightness really helps with that. In terms of connectivity to the stereo, there are a couple of things that I'm doing to control my media. Number one is I already showed you or talked about the media button that I have down here. This thing allows me to increase the volume up or down. I can also skip tracks, and there is a play pause button here. So this just takes a little cell battery, and it just Bluetooth connects directly to the stereo and allows me to control the media. So for connectivity to my music, this is where it gets a little bit tricky if you're going to do a full stereo replacement. Normally what a lot of different tablet manufacturers for cars will do like Phoenix for instance, is they'll have you set your factory stereo back into the dash so that it's out of the way, and then your tablet is going to piggyback off of your stock stereo. That's not what I'm doing here because I did a full replacement of the stereo and I wanted to upgrade my sound system. So I'm actually running with, if you can see there, I have a aftermarket amplifier which I'm using to run my speakers. So then it just becomes a question of how do we connect this guy to the tablet. Some amplifiers are actually Bluetooth capable, so they will just communicate directly with the tablet. This one is not. So the way I communicate directly with it is I have another Bluetooth adapter in here, which takes the music that's streaming from the tablet and converts it to a signal that goes over a 3.5 millimeter jack, as you can see here. And then all I did is took a converter from 3.5 millimeter to RCA dual out, and that's what gives me my RCA signal, which I can then use to run to the amplifier. And then to be able to take both channels from this, because this is a 2-channel amp, to do both channels I do use a RCA splitter, and that converts it into the 4 separate RCA cables that I need to run to the amplifier. If you want more information on how this is wired up, you can check out my other video on audio upgrades for beginners. I'll leave a link to that in the description below, and that'll kind of explain how exactly I wired everything up. This particular Bluetooth adapter is not battery powered, but I do use the USB port that's already installed in the Z. To be able to use that, I have a hub that actually sits behind the stereo. The factory stereo just had a mini USB that came out and then plugged into that port. But since I was replacing the stereo, I actually use a USB hub which is connected to my power converter so that I can run 2 power cables, one to the tablet, and then I can run the other mini USB cable back into that port so that I can continue charging this. And that is it for this video, guys. Do stay tuned because I will have a review of my new clutch type differential from Tomy. I'll be discussing that over the weekend and hopefully uploading the video here in a few days. So definitely stick around to check that out, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Later.